Welcome to the Counselling Tutor Podcast, the must-listen-to podcast for students of counselling and psychotherapy. Here are your hosts, Rory Lees-Oakes and Ken Kelly.
Hi, I'm Rory, and with me as always is Ken. How are you doing, Ken?
Exceptionally well. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for asking, Rory. I know, Rory, that you are well because we've spoken before coming on air, but I wonder how you are listening to this episode. You've joined us today at episode 186 of the Counselling Tutor Podcast. We're delighted to be here with you. We've got 3 topics that we're going to be covering today. We start with our student check-in, where we look at something relevant to students that are on the journey of studying counselling. Today we've got something really special. We've got an interview with a counselling student from Australia called Torrie Hall, and they're going to be telling us what it's like to study counselling in Australia. Then we go into the digital counselling revolution. That's where we acknowledge that digital technology now plays a part of how counselling and psychotherapy is consumed by our clients and, of course, delivered by our counsellors. And we're going to be looking at something brand new, and that is managing your digital footprint. Now, that's not a new thing, but it is a topic that has just been added to the recent BACP competence framework for working online and via phone. So we're going to be talking about that in Digital Counselling Revolution. And then we close with Practice Matters, where we look at an element of practice. As a qualified therapist, what are you likely to come across in your therapy room, in your own personal development? And today we're going to be speaking about knowing your attachment style. And when we speak about attachment styles, we often speak about maybe identifying that in a client, but there's a lot of personal development in knowing what our own attachment styles is. But let's start off. Rory, you met up with Torrie Hall, Australian counselling student. Is it really that different? I know we're going to find out from the interview, but give us a taster.
Well, first of all, we're very grateful for Torrie Hall, who's a final year student in Australia, and we caught up with her. And she talked a little bit and sometimes in depth around counselling training in Australia, which is a vast country, and this is what she had to say. And we welcome Torrie Hall, a very special guest from halfway around the world, certainly halfway around the world from Counselling Towers. Torrie, whereabouts are you?
I'm in a place called Armidale, which is in Australia.
Well, there we go. And we before we recorded, I said good day, which is the greeting, although it is your evening. And you're a student of counselling. The reason we're interviewing you is we want to get a sense of what counselling training is like in Australia. So, first of all, can you tell me a little bit about the courses that you've undertaken?
So I'm currently studying a diploma of counselling, and I'm doing it through a government institution called TAFE, and it's an 18-month course. So it has 13 core units and 5 elective units, and we finish up in June. We graduate in June.
And when you graduate, you will have what will the qualification title be?
I think it's a registered counsellor. I think that's what it will be.
Okay.
But we do have to, sorry to interrupt you, we do actually have to register ourselves under the government body of the Australian Counselling Association.
All right. So it's a mandatory registration when you finish. And you talk about your ethical body. Here in the UK, we have many ethical bodies. We have BACP, National Counsel Society, UKCP. Mm-hmm. There are a lot more. But you would have to register with that particular organisation. So they are your ethical body, are they?
Yes, I think there is a couple of other ones, but they're not as, I think the Australian ACA is an acronym, and they're the main one that you go to. That's the main one that our teacher has taught us about anyway, and that's spoken about.
So you become registered with them, and the idea is that I presume they have a code of ethics.
Yes, they do.
That you have to follow. Now in Australia, there's a great tradition which we talked about off air earlier called School of the Air, where people of my generation who watched TV programs made in Australia in the 60s would see children being taught by shortwave radio. Of course, we're more sophisticated now, but it seems to me that remote education has been a strong factor in Australian education, and for years and years and years. And in fact, your training post-COVID would have been remotely.
Yes, that's right. And it has. And we adapted quite easily. Like there was a couple of hiccups in the first couple of weeks, adjusting to, we didn't do Zoom. We did a thing called Teams meetings, and it's very similar to Zoom. It's basically the same sort of program, just a different name. And we do have a couple of people that were in the class that were from, well, there was one person from Broken Hill, which is a good couple of days drive away from here. In the same state though. And but they obviously, now that we're back to less restrictions, we have our workshops that we attend face to face still, and those people can't attend them, so they have to go to whatever their closest institute is and do it there.
Oh, so that's quite interesting. So there's different institutes within your region. And some people would go there, but at the moment you're working online using Teams.
Yes. Yeah. And last year we obviously couldn't do the workshops, the face-to-face workshops. So our role plays and everything were done through the Zoom chats, the Teams chats, and it worked. It worked quite well.
No, you were telling me earlier that the way you taught, some of it is quite creative, and you were talking about doing a module on suicide awareness, and it seems to me your organisation has come up with quite a creative way of teaching you. Just share how that is done.
So on a Wednesday we have a 2-hour class in the afternoon, which is again the Teams meeting, and we have first of all, the class started with about 13 people in it, and we've gotten down to 4, which is really unfortunate. I think a lot of people didn't cope very well through COVID, so a lot of people dropped out. We do the Wednesday afternoon class for 2 hours, and then once a month we have our workshop, which is a 2-day workshop. And we often do our role plays throughout that workshop, and it will involve either another student and an observer, or we actually get in a paid actor for the more difficult role plays that people need to do, which is good. It works well.
Yeah, and I thought that when we spoke earlier off air, I thought that was a really, really creative way of teaching. Actually getting the nearest you could get to a real client in distress. And I think that's really, really, really creative. I think if I was still teaching, I may very well be writing that down for my lesson plan for the next semester. I'll try that. So within counselling, obviously at the diploma level, when you graduate, you'll become a counsellor registered with the ethical body. Is there a placement element? So do you have to do placement hours with real clients to qualify?
So the whole way through the course, we were aware that at the end of our 18-month study, that we had to do a 150-hour placement. Of course, people struggled with their placement hours last year. A lot of places were not accepting any students. So there was a backlog. We've been keeping an eye on it throughout the last few months whilst restrictions have been lifted here in Australia. But our teacher just told us the other day that unfortunately our hours have been cut from our course. So we won't be doing any placement hours, which some people were quite happy about. I myself was not overly happy because I would have really liked that experience. Of course, I can go and offer some volunteer work, but I don't think it's the same without having the education facility backing me up with that one.
And do you have a clinical supervisor? Do you see a supervisor to supervise your hours and to oversee your practice when you graduate?
Not a clinical supervisor. It would only be our teacher that's been with us the whole time. She has a graduate diploma and a degree, I think, in psychology. So she would be our supervisor throughout all of that.
Sure. So if you become a practicing counsellor and you qualify and you advertise yourself as a practicing counsellor, do you have a supervisor? You would see in the UK, you would see a supervisor for 1.5 hours every every month. Is that the case in Australia?
I'd say most definitely. We have spoken about supervision and then debriefing, obviously, with that supervisor. And I think depending on where you would go, whether it was a private practice or whether it was a more of a government practice, I think, especially not having that experience with the placement hours, I think you would definitely have to have supervisor with you.
Absolutely. One of the things that is really interesting is that I say it's interesting. I think it's interesting is that different training providers train in different modalities of therapy. So it wouldn't be unusual for a UK student to learn a core model, maybe person-centered, and then look at separate models. Or they maybe do an integrative model where they learn 2 or 3 models, applying 2 or 3 models. How are the models taught? And is it integrative, or would you learn a core model and then look at others? How does that work?
We did a unit called developmental theories, and as I said, per unit we usually do 2 weeks per unit, which is all that is the time will allow us, and we have an assessment per unit as well. The developmental theories, we looked at a range of different theories such as CBT, person-centered, Gestalt, and a few different ones within that. And so we sort of get a brief outline of everything. And that's why I think the placement hours were going to be important, because then you can look at what direction you wanted to go with those and sort of experiment a little bit with what you felt more comfortable with.
Yes. And yeah, so you got the chance of kind of developing the model that you felt was most appropriate for you, and of course potential clients. So when you graduated, you look for work. How is the counselling world of work in your region? I mean, Australia is a very big place, but in your region, where would you look for work, and what kind of work is available?
That's the thing. So I'm myself personally, I'm not sure if I want to go into something like Department of Family, Community and Families to work with children in the foster system, or going to a women's shelter to work with women and domestic violence, or even alcohol and drug with the hospital, the facilities at the hospital. So there's those places. There's also private practices where people run their own private practices. I'd say Armidale, where I live now, there's 25,000 people. It's a population of 25,000. We have a university here, the University of New England. So we have probably, off the top of my head, about 8 to 10 private practices, counselling, not psychology. Of course, we have psychologists as well and psychotherapists, but counselling, and probably within that, on top of that, probably around another 6 to 10 government-funded ones, such as to do with the hospital, branch off the hospital.
Well, Torrie, it's been fascinating speaking with you to get a flavour of training across the world, and we're going to be interviewing other people from different countries just to get a sense, just to widen the discussion about what counselling training looks like, and how counselling training is applied. So I've really enjoyed speaking with you. I was saying just off air that I cannot believe that we're literally half the world away, but we are literally half the world away. We are. So Torrie Hall, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rory. I really appreciate you asking me to be on the show. I've followed you throughout my counselling studies, and it's a great honour.
Thank you very much to Torrie Hall, and for you, Rory, for getting involved in that interview. Remember, if you are a student of counselling psychotherapy, we have a library. We have a set of resources that is there designed to ease your study journey. It's called the Counselling Study Resource. It was developed by Rory and myself. We have roped in many experts that have contributed lectures and resources. And if you're interested in finding out more about the Counselling Study Resource, you can get information by going to counsellingtutor.com. That's our mother website. We now delve into the digital counselling revolution. I sound like a DJ, one of those radio DJs that go, now I'm going to delve into the digital counselling revolution. And that's, of course, where we acknowledge technology's use in counselling psychotherapy. And today we're looking at a topic, managing your digital footprint. Why are we covering this topic today, Rory?
Well, it's a really important topic because it is been put in to the latest BACP competence framework for good practice in online working.
Digital Counselling Revolution.
Yeah, so I always thought that a digital footprint's a bit like walking on the sand after the tide's gone out. You know, you walk along and you can leave a footprint, and with footprints, of course, people can follow you. And it's really important that when we work online, we make sure that our client's digital footprint, in other words, anything that could identify them, is minimized. And when we think about that, we can think about things, just little things that maybe we wouldn't usually think about. For instance, if a client's paying you, are they paying you directly into your bank account? And if that's a shared bank account, could it be that your partner looks at the bank account and says, well, who's this person? Again, that could be a breach of confidentiality. Same thing with phone bills. If you've got a itemized phone bill, obviously if the client phones you up, that number will appear. So it's really, really important that when we think about managing our clients' digital footprints and how they may be identified, that we're very, very thoughtful. And some people set up payment gateways, so using PayPal or Stripe, so the client pays PayPal and then PayPal pays directly into the account. So the account does not show any name of any clients. And I guess it's the same thing goes for, if clients are sending emails to you, how you manage those emails, where you store them, making sure that they can't be seen. The digital footprint's quite a big thing, because once something is sent and it's actually on the internet, it's very, very hard to get rid of it. So we need to be very thoughtful of what our clients send us, where we store them, and I guess who sees that information. So it also goes to thinking about the technology we use. So a lot of people may use video conferencing software. But Ken and myself are meeting up by video link today. And you have to be very, very certain who stores that client's information. And you can do that by going to your video production, your video hosting site, whoever you use. It could be Zoom or VC or the myriad of online platforms, and making sure that they're GDPR compliant, that they don't store clients' information. It's just so important, Ken.
It is. So we're speaking now about the digital footprint. As Rory kind of pointed out going into this, there's been a recent update by the BACP where they've revised the competence framework for working online and via phone. And I think that was a great move. I think the last revision of that was in 2016. So much has changed since then. At the time of making this were 2021. So definitely worth a revision. And this topic is covered, managing your digital footprint, managing your client's digital footprint. And I think what is interesting, Rory, you started off by saying digital footprints like walking along a beach and you're leaving a footprint. You look behind you and you leave a footprint. And the interesting thing is that online, there is a footprint left wherever you go, whether that's a cookie bot storing your cookies when you visit a website, or even your search history. There's a whole footprint that goes wherever you go. The thing online is when you look behind you, unlike a beach, you can't see it. You can't see unless you start digging around and using some tools to find your digital footprint. You're not going to be able to see it, but you're leaving a trace of where you have been. Very often, if there is a criminal investigation, the police will start looking at a digital footprint to understand a person's behavior, what they've been doing, what sites they've been searching on the internet, where they've been, what they've been buying, what phone calls they've been making. They're able to look at that digital footprint. And we need to be aware of it. We need to be aware of it in terms of protecting our clients, as Rory has already said, being really considerate of what software we use and how information is gathered and used when using that software. But I guess the other side of it is being aware of our own digital footprint, because anything you're putting out online, whether it be on a social media platform like Twitter or Facebook, once it's out there for good. It's very difficult to take it back. And what I mean, an example of that is there's been in the media recently, there's been examples of compromising photographs that have been uploaded online of a person, and they try to take them down. But by the time they take that photo down, it's been shared hundreds, if not thousands of times. So once it's out there, it's like the genie out of the bottle. It's very difficult to get it back in the bottle again, or to get rid of it once something is online. And I did a bit of research on this and frightened myself, Rory. There is now artificial intelligence that is being used for facial recognition. And this is not just available to the police or the government. You can actually go online, and if you put in facial recognition photo, there are apps where you can upload a photograph of yourself to that app. That app will trawl the internet, and it will bring back all the photos it can find of you. Now, I have no hair, and the reason I have no hair is because I've lost it as I've aged. But I did an experiment, and I uploaded a recent photograph of myself. I put it into one of these apps, and I was absolutely stunned to see pictures of me from many, many decades ago, where I looked different. I had hair, I wasn't wearing glasses, I didn't have a beard, which I have at the moment. And the AI was able to find and bring back all of those photos. And it was an indication of my digital footprint. It's quite scary.
Yeah, that is scary, Ken. That is really, really scary. The other thing it strikes me is that apps like Twitter and Facebook now have been going for a number of years. And there has been occasions where people have been caught out because they've tweeted something maybe when they were, 15 or 16. 10 years later, they're 25, and all of a sudden, a unfortunate tweet sent out by a child comes up, and there has been a case of someone who's lost a job because of a tweet they made 10 or 11 years ago when they were effectively a child. So you have to be really, really thoughtful of your social media profile. I'll even give you an example. I was out long before the coronavirus lockdown, playing bowls with a friend of mine, and she said, "Do you want me to take a picture?" And I said, no, you're fine, because pictures can be tagged. So you can take a picture and then someone can tag you, and then before you know it, you're in someone else's social media feed. So I don't want to give the impression that you need to be like a spy, a Cold War spy, but you really do need to be thoughtful of your digital footprint. And of course, Ken's talked about searching for his face. I'm sure that clients may very well search for their therapist. I think, searching for people now has become quite a popular thing to do in the world of the internet. So just be thoughtful. Is your social media platforms locked down? Your private one. Can people see what you're posting? I think we are really moving into a world of having to be very, very thoughtful about our social media presence. But that is the digital footprint. And as Ken said, once it's on the internet, it's very, very, very hard to remove it.
Yeah. So there you have it. That is our digital counselling revolution. Have a think about your digital footprint. Speak to some peers. Have the conversation on our Facebook group. We've got tens of thousands of members on our Facebook group, and you can find that by going onto Facebook and putting in Counselling Tutor. Come and join the group. But when you're there, beware. What you're putting out is part of your digital footprint. So we move away now from the digital counselling revolution and into the world of practice. And we, of course, call this Practice Matters. And today we're going to be speaking about knowing and understanding your own attachment style.
Practice Matters.
Yes, knowing your own attachment style, I think this is just a super important piece of research for therapists in practice, because our attachment style is how effectively we relate to other people. If we have a secure base, if we feel secure in the world, John Bowlby said that we would have, John Bowlby, of course, who could be called the father of attachment. Of course, Mary Ainsworth did some fantastic groundbreaking work. but it really does. It really can impact on how our relationships form and sustain and end. And I think it's really good practice to find out what your attachment style is. You may very well know, and maybe worth thinking about how that plays out in the therapeutic room, in the therapeutic alliance. The other thing I would say is it's crucially important for anybody who's working with children to know their attachment style. And the reason for that is children tend to be a bit unedited, unaudited. They tend to be quite straightforward in my experience. I was a school counsellor for 7 years. And it can, in some cases, when you're working with someone with a specific attachment style, impact on how you relate to them. And, you know, when Ken and myself were training therapists, we always used to do an attachment, knowing your attachment style workshop, because we always thought it was important that people went into the world, understanding their attachment style, and incredibly important as a practitioner, how that plays out in the therapy room. And when you're talking things like transference, where someone might remind you of someone from the past, your attachment style will play out. And I think that therapists need to manage that, and in some cases have therapy for it. A couple of years ago, I had some therapy around my attachment style to kind of get some sense of how it might play out in the therapy room, and also in wider relationships. And it was very telling. I can say that having time to reflect on my attachment style made me consider how I conducted relationships with other people, something that was seen by others, but perhaps not seen by myself, Ken.
Oh, yes, I can certainly relate to that, Rory. And I'm just thinking back to my student years when I was studying attachment in the classroom. I'm going to be honest, I found it really tricky, and I had a light bulb moment. So first of all, I'm going to go to the tricky part. So when you're looking at attachment, you've got theoretical words like insecure, ambivalent attachment, secure attachment, insecure, disorganized attachment, insecure, avoidant attachment. And I found it really tricky, Rory, to take those words and actually link them to what they really mean. And as you quite rightly said, if you want to look at the roots of attachment, you want to be looking back to the works of Bowlby. But we can't, of course, ignore Eric Berne, the founder of transactional analysis, who took attachment and kind of put the attachment into what he calls patterns of attachment. And patterns of attachment, he then uses really simplistic words that I could get my head around, talking about me or I and you. So if you think about what I'm doing now, when I'm saying I'm hitting my chest. That's about me, but we call it I. And then I'm pointing outwards and I'm saying you. And when we speak about attachment and we speak about the patterns of attachment, if you take something like secure attachment is a balanced person. It's a person who is open to other people's opinions. If you criticize a person with a secure attachment pattern, they are likely to listen to what your criticism is and go, well, you know what, that is your opinion. You are welcome to your opinion. I feel differently. Or the person with the secure attachment may even say, you know what, that you're saying to me, I recognize maybe there's some work I can do there. So a person with a secure attachment is pretty much okay with who they are and pretty flexible within their personality. And the way that Berne describes that in his patterns of attachment is secure attachment is you are okay, I'm pointing out, and I'm okay. We're both okay. It's okay for you to have your own thoughts, your own opinions. They don't attack me, and it's okay for me to have my own thoughts and opinions. Then when we go into insecure, ambivalent attachment, that is I'm not okay. I'm not all right within myself, and you are okay. And what we might see in a person that is, I am not okay, you are okay, is that they may belittle themselves, see themselves less than, look to others for what to do, look to others to say that it's okay what they are doing. That is the insecure ambivalence. So I remember it easiest by I'm not okay, you are okay. And what might you see in a client, you might see an example of somebody that is in a domestic abusive situation who might say something like, well, maybe in some way I deserve it. They are belittling themselves in such a terrible situation. It's almost like, I'm not okay. You're okay. The other person is okay. When we look to insecure, disorganized, you're not okay. I'm not okay either. And that is pretty rare. And then you are not okay. I am okay. That's insecure, avoidant. And that is kind of, the person is saying, well, you're not okay. I'm okay. Maybe in early childhood, they might have had experiences that kind of lead that person to not trust easily. So they might look at everything with skepticism because you're not okay. I'm okay. I can trust myself. If you want something, doing it yourself. Other people are always going to let you down is the kind of thing that you might hear from someone insecure, avoidant, attachment pattern. You're not okay. I am okay. And that kind of turned the light bulb on to me for attachment, Rory, putting the okays, the I and the you in there. Yeah.
Absolutely, Ken. It's a very easy way of sharing that information. The I'm okay, you're not okay, and I'm okay, you're okay. And it really, what really strikes me is there's some stunning statistics about attachment. And I prepared a handout which has those statistics on, and also gives you some idea maybe of where to start with your own attachment style. So if you go to counsellingtutor.com, go to the podcast tab, go to podcast 186, there's a handout waiting for you. You click on it and it'll download it. But I want to share some of the statistics in this handout. 55% of the population are securely attached. That's a stunning figure, isn't it, Ken?
Yeah, that is.
Only just over half the population have a secure attachment. And avoidant dismissive, 23% of the population, ambivalent, 8% of the population, and disorganized attachment, 15% of the population. So, it says a lot, I think, about early childhood experiences. Although attachment can alter in adulthood, you can have someone who's securely attached in adulthood and then has a traumatic experience, and that reforms their attachment style. But I do think that it says a huge amount about how children experience the world if only half of us get to adulthood with a secure attachment, Ken.
Yeah. Oh, very, very much so. And I mean, we went into this saying identifying your own attachment style. And why would you want to do that? Well, there's great personal development in knowing your own attachment style and looking at your own base behaviors, kind of what is your knee-jerk reaction to certain things when under stress. Now, what we can do is we develop techniques and ways of kind of working around what our attachment pattern may be. But the theory kind of suggests that when we become under duress or stressed, that we would revert back to our attachment style. So knowing what that is, finding ourselves kind of acting from our attachment style is really interesting for personal development. Though there is also theory that suggests that it's not easy to impossible to change your attachment style, because it's something that is rooted from childhood. If you look at the work of Bowlby, it kind of walks you through how attachment style is kind of rooted in. So it's almost hardwired. It's part of the programming that runs us as a person and how we interpret and interact with the world. And I don't mind sharing that in looking at my own attachment style, I'm definitely avoidant, insecure avoidant, or avoidant dismissive, as you mentioned it, Rory. And it kind of goes from a position of you're not okay, I'm okay. That sounds like a really self-centered place to be. You're not okay, I'm okay. And I guess when I look back at my own childhood, there were some rocky times during my childhood where I got to a point where I thought, the only person I can really trust and rely on is myself. I'd been let down by my primary caregivers, and maybe that's where that attachment style maybe got seeded. I'm not 100% sure, but I recognize now, after the personal development of my counselling training, continuously looking at myself for over a decade, pretty much on a daily basis, I still see myself playing out transactions where it's I'm okay, you're not okay, and it's my go-to place. Of course, I work around that from personal development. I know it exists, so I kind of work with that, but I see it, and it's not gone away. It's still there, and it gives me a lifetime of personal development sitting and looking at that, Rory.
Absolutely, and I share the same attachment style as you said. So wonder we've lasted so long, really, isn't it? And what the therapy gave me was the ability, maybe not to be totally cured, but to understand it and arrest it when it comes up. There's a great quote by Richard Erskine that said, when the adult's in the room, the child's listening. And in other words, that part of you is always listening for the rejection and for that I'm going to have to do this on my own. And I think in terms of an avoiding attachment style, and I think that, for qualified colleagues, I think, I'll set you a challenge. Why don't you, if you don't know, find out?
Yes.
Because it will play out in the therapy room. When we're working with clients, I think a good supervisor would pick up if there was any kind of parallel process where the therapist was reenacting out what was going on for the clients. And if you get two people with the same attachment style, it can be interesting. It can be interesting unless you know it, unless you can manage it and voice it. I think it can have quite a profound impact on relationships. So my challenge to you, if you're a qualified colleague, and anybody who's listening really, why don't you download this handout and just try and work out very basically what your attachment style is. I think you might find it surprising.
Yeah, if you know your attachment style, maybe think about it, journal, maybe have a conversation with a peer about attachment. It's an absolute wealth of information. As Rory has said, if you don't know your attachment style, go to counsellingtutor.com. Click on the podcast tab, episode 186. You'll find all of the info from today's episode, including that download for Rory's super duper handout. So there it is. That was episode 186 of the Counselling Tutor Podcast.
Oh, we had quite a potpourri of topics. We started off with an interview with Torrie Hall, an Australian counselling student. We thanked Torrie for that. We went into Digital Counselling Revolution and talked about managing digital footprints, the artifacts we leave behind on our journey across the internet. And finally, we talked in Practice Matters about knowing your attachment style. And as always, stay grounded, stay safe, and hey, join the digital counselling revolution.
Take the stress out of your counselling studies and get the support of Rory and I by joining us in the Counselling Study Resource. Counselling Study Resource, or CSR for short, is the world's most comprehensive assignment guidance and study support resource for students just like you of counselling and psychotherapy. See how Counselling Study Resource can help you. Visit counsellingtutor.com. That's counsellingtutor.com.
Thank you for listening to the Counselling Tutor Podcast. Find the show notes for this episode on our website at www.counsellingtutor.com.